Racial bias. We got handed the topic racial bias. And you might be wondering, what is racial bias? Racial bias means you have something against a group of people or a person singularly based on their race. Meaning there's no legit reason for not liking that person or that group of people except their race. They might have the exact same qualities and competence that a group of people you might like or a person you like, except their race. But it's important to notice here that racial bias does not mean that you're a sworn racist, but it can mean that you have prejudice against another race. And if racial bias is still a problem in America today, there's a question that both ABC News and the Washington Post want to find out. So they did a poll, and the answers were really different. It really came on to who you asked. And the results were that twice as many black people felt there was a big problem with racial bias today than the white. And in 2017, we have come a long way towards equality in all ways, both in the LGBT community, the gender equality, and race. But there are still some areas more than others that are affected by racial bias and suffer from it more than others. And although we all like to consider ourselves good people, we all have some prejudice of some sort. Not necessarily regarding race of any sort, but it might be you have bias against certain stereotypes, certain people for the way they dress, for what they eat, for how they are. You might just have a prejudice against it. That means that there's no legit reason for not liking them except that one quality that makes you not like them. And this prejudice doesn't just appear when you're born. You're influenced. You're influenced both by your parents, your friends, your local community, and the mass media. And polls will also show this.
Statistics and polls have shown that racial bias is in different areas, one of them being the police. Whom the police stops in traffic is the first poll. And according to a police accountability report from Chicago in 2016, it was proved that black and Hispanic drivers were searched around 4 times as often as the white drivers. Even though the Chicago Police Department's own data showed that white people were taken with illegal goods twice as often as the black and Hispanic people. This is a very good example of racial bias and prejudice. When you look at the amount of times people or the police have stopped people of color compared to white, it shows that they have a whole other suspicion and prejudice towards black and Hispanic people compared to the white people. Another example is this one. More than 130 preschool teachers and administrators took part in a study where they were going to test the teachers' ability to detect challenging behavior in the classroom. They were going to be shown clips that was taken inside the classroom, but what the teachers didn't know was that all the kids were actors and none of the clips included challenging behavior. With the help of eye tracking technology, researchers found out that teachers use most of the time following the boys, and especially the black boys. After watching clips, the teachers were asked who required the most attention in the classroom. 42% of the teachers answered that it was the black boys. What the researchers claimed then was that it appeared that teachers paid a lot more attention or were expecting more challenging behavior from the black kids compared to the white kids, and therefore paid a lot more attention to them in class. This is where the word prejudice comes back into mind, because you can clearly see that they expect more trouble from a kid that is black compared to a kid that is white. Another thing you can take out from this example is that racial bias starts early in life. The last example I'm going to take is about a university study where people are going to be tested in inherent racial bias in a simulated workplace. The case was that out of 4 people that had equally strong resumes, 2 of them white and 2 of them black, they were going to choose who were the 2 most likely to advance. Despite the fact that half of the candidates were white and the other half black, more than 60% of the white participants voted for the 2 white candidates, and only 6% voted for the 2 non-white candidates.
Many immigrants in Norway experience prejudice against their name, color, and ethnicity when they apply for a job. They are met and viewed from external characteristics, and only based on these factors, people compose an opinion about who they are and what they're capable of. It is also a fact that people with foreign names have difficulties getting a job. A report from 2012 told that Norwegian employers were rather hire employees with Norwegian names The possibility to get called in for a job interview drops with 25% if you have a foreign name. This is a serious discrimination problem in the Norwegian working environment. According to the Working Environment Act, it is forbidden to discriminate the working environment and hiring process when it comes to gender, religion, color, and ethnicity background. We also spoke with a man who had a foreign name who would like to stay anonymous. He applied for countless of jobs but never got called in for a job interview. It got to that extent that he actually had to change his name in hopes of getting a job. This time he actually managed to get a job due to his name change. He's still the same person with the same personality but just with a different name. This just shows how much of an impact a name can have when applying for jobs. And that concludes our video. And as you learned during this video, racial bias can start early, but it can also be a product of our surroundings and experiences with the group or race in question. As we said, people may not know they have prejudice against others because it is a part of our identity. According to tests involving prejudice, it is shown that children may have prejudice as early as 3 years old due to our surroundings again. Race can therefore depend a lot on our own background. We may not be completely aware that we have these thoughts. As the statistics show, we can now say for certainty that racial bias still exists in the world. And that concludes our video. Thank you for the attention.